Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Shade.
I'm Rich.
And this is the United State, brought to you by Gallowgateshots. We're super stoked to be back. We're really looking forward to doing a bunch of new episodes this year, but we're really excited to have our first episode come right off the back of not only our first win of 2022, but a really important win that we needed.
Yeah, right. 2-0
against Leeds.
We needed that, didn't we?
Oh, bro.
Yeah. Bloody hell.
Jesus, that was...
we don't do it the easy way. I tell you.
No, we never do.
Never, ever. You know, going into the fact yesterday, I watched Leeds last week, against West Ham. Yeah. And I'm thinking, oh my God, these guys are gonna tear us a new one. And I was
I know.
And I was thinking,
I try so hard to be optimistic, but I won't lie. Like going in yesterday, I was definitely feeling a little more pessimistic than normal. I mean, that Watford equalizer really just fucking my heart.
It deflated the whole. I'm pretty sure it deflated the whole team, and obviously the fan base and everyone, associate with us. But you can obviously tell that they're just working behind the scenes, on and off the pitch.
Yeah,
they're trying to get new players, and obviously like being linked with 10,000 players
everybody under the sun.
You know what I mean? All these agents are like, all right, Newcastle got a bit of money up there. All right, so I'll just tweet something to this Keith down, or any sports journalist.
All the in the know accounts are loving all this.
Oh, of course.
I mean, it is exciting. I mean, me and you haven't really touched base on the channel. I mean, obviously we've done it offline and everything. And a lot's happened. I was out in the Tune and you were out here and everything like that. And we got through Christmas and stuff. And I'm sure we'll talk about all of that at some other time. But it was exciting to bring in Trippier. And, and I know people are on the fence on this Wood signing, but I think it's a fantastic signing. I think it's something that we really needed. I won't lie. Like, I know he won a lot of headers yesterday, but he really didn't seem. He really seemed very invisible yesterday, which was frustrating because it's hard, right? Because I think Callum Wilson is miles better, but I know some of the opportunities that were given, I think Wilson would have had a goal in him but it's also still early days with him, and really it doesn't really matter. We won. We got 3 points. There's 3 big points at Leeds at home. Yeah, so it's massive, and it was a great day celebrating.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it was a lovely day in the sun. I'm happy to be back, and
that's it.
Happy to be back with you, and I'm glad we got a win in finally.
Oh, it just feels so good to finally. I know when we are winning ugly, we're not playing attractive football. We're playing effective football, and it really showed yesterday with really good performances all over the pitch. They really needed to put in a shift. Paul Dummett, Ryan Fraser limping around, and you're right though with Chris Wood. Yeah, he won the most aerial battles in the game yesterday, about 15, I think it was. But if we're going to use him to his full potential, he needs the ball early. He can't wait. If Maxi's trying to take on 3 players, it's too late. He needs to get the ball early to win the battle, bring it down, hold the ball up, and bring in another player. But to be critical of him, he's not sniffing around the 6-yard box enough. He needs to be another yard ahead. There was a couple of opportunities yesterday. So, but it's exciting that we got that win. And John Joe Shelby, and it was funny how after the game, he was like, "Well, I think the goalkeeper helped us out there a bit." So we deserve a bit of luck.
And I know, like Simon and some of the San Diego lads. Where I give me a bit of grief on Twitter, but come on, everyone wanted Trippier to take that.
Oh yeah, it was so funny.
It was the general consensus, right? And
it was so funny.
I was like, you know what? I'm happy to eat my words. I have no problem being wrong if it means we get 3 points.
Exactly. It's so funny. We got the free kick. Literally, myself, you, and Simon were like, "What's Shelby doing?"
I know.
And then he scored, and it was like, he's scoring. That's what he's doing. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll take it. It was great. I'm really hoping that we can carry this momentum going forward.
Yeah.
It's really, really tight at the bottom. So I'm still optimistic. I'm still optimistic we stay up, especially after yesterday. And we'll kind of go from there. But we're not really here to talk. I mean, obviously we talk a little bit about the match because how could we not? And it was just such a big day for us yesterday, and it was just such good vibes as well the rest of the day. And it's been really, really great. If you follow us on social media, we've had a lot of great tune supporting tourists show up for at Bluefoot to watch the matches. Like 2 weeks in a row, we've had new faces of people just in town wanting to watch a match with everybody, and that's been fantastic. Like that's what it's all about. And we always say, any Geordie's welcome in San Diego, and it's just been really great to see people taking us up on the offer.
It's becoming a movement.
I'm loving it, man.
We've got a flag with the San Diego Mags.
Yeah, we're getting a little more serious about it.
We are.
Yeah.
And we've got support coming from all ends, and every fan has got a different spice to bring. So it's great.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, and just kind of touching off that, like different spice, different stories. We're really appreciate the patience in waiting for us to come out with a new episode to all our listeners. But 2022, we're really looking to build the United State up in a big way. We've got a lot of amazing interviews lined up. We're not just going to be doing features on fan groups, which we're still going to continue to do that, but we're going to have a lot more key interviews with former players, former current staff, and coaches and stuff like that. And really unique stories from fans over here that we think are really, really interesting. And we've got a really, really good queue of episodes lined up for the next couple of months, and we're really, really excited. I'm buzzing off.
I'm buzzing.
Stuff we've got planned. Like it's going to be.
I'm buzzing. I'm buzzing just to keep building the momentum. Sorry. If the team, if the first team gets a few wins in and we stay up, it'd be massive. But we, need as fans. We need everyone to come out the woodwork, or if you're out there, just to have us a listen, give us a share, follow us, and we'll keep you updated. And then come out to San Diego, we'll show you a good time. We'll
we
definitely
will.
What we'll give, we'll keep giving back, and just let everyone in on the broader picture of Newcastle and what it's like to be a fan worldwide, and how we can all get together more.
And it's going to be great. So 2022, we're going to be a little more consistent with the episodes coming out. And like I said, we're going to have a lot of cool things lined up. And and for our first episode of 2022, we're really, really excited. We've got Rhiannon and Courtney Locke joining us. They both played for Newcastle United Women's, and for the majority of their careers, and now they're coaches out in sunny California, in Southern California, actually, not too far from where Rich and I live. And we're really, really excited to bring them on and talk about, not only, their story and how they came to be the footballers that they are and the coaches that they've now become, but also, learn more about Newcastle United Women's and kind of how that looks for everything. Cause I think that a lot of our US fans might not know too much about it. And so we think that that's going to be awesome. And really to just hear their stories, cause it's a unique story, and to come all the way from the Northeast to sunny California, like Rich knows is a story in itself. And I know it the other way around. And so for our brand new 2022 episode 1, we've got Rhiannon and Courtney Locke joining us. Rhiannon, Courtney, welcome to the show. We're super stoked to have you. How you guys doing today?
Hello. Good. Thank you. How are you?
Doing well. I mean,
We're
doing
good.
Fantastic. Newcastle got a win yesterday, finally.
I know, that's good. I know, we're going in the right direction.
100%. 100%. We still got a lot of work to do, though. A lot of work.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so we're really, really happy to have you on the show. We've already kind of talked a little bit about you guys before we brought you on, but maybe so our viewers and listeners know who each one of you are. If we could just have Rhiannon raise her hand.
This is me.
And Courtney. Cool. Just so that, because we've got you on the same screen. But so yeah, so we wanted to talk a little bit about where you guys are from before we kind of get into the Newcastle United of it all, because you both have interesting stories. And so I think we should start with Rhiannon.
The real Geordie.
That's right.
Good way to start. I mean, so obviously I'm from Newcastle. I was born in Kingston Park, right beside the Falcons, and I lived there pretty much the whole time until I came here. I bought a house in Kingston Park, so yeah, I'm Newcastle through and through.
I am from Sunderland, and I lived there up until university. So till I was about 17, 18, and then now I'm 28. So I've lived in Newcastle for about 10 years up until I moved out here.
Fantastic. So we've got a Geordie and a Mackham. And now you're both in sunny California, which we'll get to as well. Which I think is awesome because that's where we all are now. Cool. So how did you both start playing football? Like, what was kind of the spark that ignited that for both of you? You guys have had fantastic careers thus far, so we want to kind of know where it all started.
Well, obviously for me, we're actually talking about this the other day, weren't we? How we actually started playing. I was about 7, and there was a girl who I went to school with, and she used to play with I don't really know how I ended up playing, but she used to play with the boys all the time on the yard. And so one time I joined in, and God, I was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. And I don't think the boys ever really wanted us to join in, but I played for a boy, and then I joined the boys team from that. Played for a boys team when I was younger, and then played for like various club teams. And then I actually went to Newcastle Academy at under 14s. Spent a bit of time there, and then I actually went over to Sunderland after that. So I was at club teams in between. Then I went to Sunderland when I went to not college. It was college, wasn't it? When I went to college, Mel asked us to go over to Sunderland. So I went to Sunderland. I was at the development team. And then after that was when they won the WSL. I never really went into the first team. And then after that, went into Newcastle Women's. And I was there maybe 5 seasons before I left to come here.
I actually got into it watching my dad play on a weekly. My dad used to play in over 40s for like a pub team called the Sportsman's Arms. So I used to obviously get dragged there every weekend, and I loved it. And then my best friend, who is actually the current captain of Sunderland Women, we lived like a stone's throw away from each other. So she always used to play. And like I just kind of got into it from there. It's very similar. Like she used to play with the boys, but she was good enough to play with the boys, and I was just kind of like, right, figuring it out. What's this game? Let's get playing. And I was only about 6 or something like that. And then she was like, "Oh, like come to my football team." So I went with her, and it was an all girls team. And then we played in the boys' league when we were younger. And it kind of went from there, and that went on till about 10 or 11. Then we went in the girls' league. We went to play for Sunderland for a year, but it was when it was a centre of excellence, and you could play for your club team as well. So we did that for a year, and then we went back to our club team. And then I went to Newcastle. I think when I went to Newcastle the last year of centre of excellence, so I was 15, and then I was there till 22. Had a couple of seasons at Middlesbrough, then went back to Newcastle. So I think it was like 10 years in total that I played for Newcastle. So
you can tell who's older.
Yeah.
What was it?
Yeah, go ahead, Rich.
Well, no, I was just going to say, what was it like, obviously growing up in Sunderland and Newcastle, and then changing teams halfway through, like, Newcastle here and Sunderland there. What kind of emotions are going through your mind? Can you remember?
It's so funny because I'm just so passionate about the game. So like when I'm playing for Newcastle, I'm so passionate about Newcastle and wanting to win. And I don't think, oh God, I've got to wear this Newcastle shirt. Like it was never like that. I'd never seen that. Like obviously when I'm watching Newcastle or playing for Newcastle, I would just want Newcastle to win. Like I would die to win. But obviously, like you've played for Sunderland, you've played for both. Like I've never really played for Sunderland, so nice. I think it makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah. To be fair, for me, it's the same. I don't know, like maybe it's in the women's game. I don't know if the boys are different, but like you just want to play at the highest level you can, don't you? So obviously at the time when I was at Sunderland, it was a higher level than Newcastle, so I just wanted to play and like do well. And then obviously when I went back to Newcastle, obviously it's probably a little bit more personal, and I liked it a little bit more, but no difference really.
Yeah, that's I mean, first off, I love the alpha mentality, but that's awesome. But so, well, I mean, obviously the game has changed a lot, and we'll get into all of that, especially, I mean, the English game for women. But so, you know, playing with boys when you're first getting started and stuff, was that really the kind of only avenue that you guys had when wanting to get into, you know, playing properly and stuff like that? Was there just not a lot of avenues for young girls to play football? Or was it just the circumstances that you guys were in?
I think it's probably different, not to drag the age into it. I think it's probably different for me and Courtney at the minute, because Courtney was, I don't know what it was like when you were younger, but when I was younger, I think I probably could have played for a girls' team. And I know I started in a boys' team just because all my friends who I played out with played in that team. But then pretty sharp, there was a girls' team, and I played for an all-girls team. And I remember being really young playing for an all-girls team. And looking back now, obviously we worked at the RTC at home, and all the girls play in boys' league. And I think if I had played with boys for longer, probably would have been better. But yeah, like there was both avenues for me when I was younger. But
yeah. I mean, you kind of just know what you know at the time, don't you? So I was just this girl playing for girls' team, and at the weekend I'd go and play against boys. And like that was how it was. Like I went to the game I was kind of taken to, but I remember, I think it was round about under 10s, and I don't know if it was made a decision to put us in the girls' league, or it was like, this is the last year. If that rings a bell, like them saying this is the last year you can play with the boys. So we had to go in a girls' league. But like that age is totally changed now and got higher, which is so good, because obviously when we worked at the RTC, the girls up until under 12s would play against the boys, and I think that's great. And like we said, I think I would have probably been a lot better. Now
it's under 16s though, isn't it?
Yeah, well, but the RTC played under 12s, don't they? So it's like, it's one of them things where I probably would have been better as well if I could have played with them longer. But I feel like at the time it was like when you hit this age of like 9 or 10, it was like, right, okay, usually like kind of go now and go and play with the girls, and let the boys play with the boys kind of thing. So.
And then, so, I mean, Rhiannon, you play in the midfield, right? And Courtney, you're center back, right? Were those always the positions that you guys played, or were you coached into that eventually? Where did you start out before we kind of go to where you ended up?
Well, I was actually a goalkeeper. I didn't start as a goalkeeper. Yeah, I was a centre back for a long time. And I remember my job was to make sure everyone was in line, and that was my job. Then I was a goalkeeper for like a season or two. And really, if I think back, probably should have just stayed as a goalkeeper. I'm tall, probably would have been better. But no, so I was a goalkeeper, and then somehow I don't know how I ended up playing centre mid, and I played centre mid every time since. Had a little bit of a spell up top, but no, centre mid.
Centre mid. That's awesome.
I was centre back. I think I ventured as far as right back for a couple of seasons, and then back to centre back. I've pretty much been very consistent in the back line.
Solid,
always.
Rich is a goalkeeper as well.
I know. I was gonna say when you first get put into football, I think I was like 6 or 7 years old. Everyone's like, "Who wants to go in goal?" I was just like, oh, me. Like,
I think you've got to have a bit of a screw loose to be a goalkeeper. Like,
you know what it is actually interesting. So, you know, I was saying my best friend who got us into football is captain of Southern Women now. I remember when we used to play out in the streets, I was actually the goalkeeper, and she would just take shots at us all day. And I think actually the plan was for me to go and be a goal for that team. But then when I went there, obviously, because all I'd ever done is save her shots or let them in, one of the two. And then when I got there, they were like, "Oh, I've got a goalkeeper, like, but you can play in defence," and that's kind of where it spiraled from. But I do actually think that was the initial plan, but it wouldn't have worked out because I'm only 5'3", so that didn't work out.
Yeah, there's something about being a goalie. It just you'd be that last line of defence. You know, you can command that area.
Yeah. Well, my best friend's a goalkeeper. She's the Newcastle women's goalkeeper, Grace Donnelly. And
great.
Like, yeah, she's got a little bit of a screw loose, you know, like she just likes to dive about and jump at people's feet, and you know, she's a great goalkeeper.
That's all we did. about when I was younger, I actually worked with Simon Smith. Do you know Simon Smith? So Simon Smith's the goalkeeping coach for the listeners here has been for years at Newcastle, and he used to run goalkeeping courses. And we used to just like take volleys at each other, pop like the most disorganized football game you've ever seen, like 20 goalkeepers trying to play football.
Yeah, I remember going on one of them courses actually.
Oh yeah, no, they were great. They were great. Through summer camp, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So like here in the States, right? Like to kind of develop professionally in football, you have to go to a lot of those types of courses and pay extra and stuff like that. Obviously we know it's a little different in England, where it's it's still very much like a working class sport, and you can kind of grow with the sport just within the community that you come from. You don't have to kind of be shipped all over and stuff like that. But just because you guys talking about these camps and stuff like that, did you guys go to a lot of those growing up as well, or and if so, were there any memorable ones that you attended?
I mean, we were talking about this the other day as well. I went to every camp there was, and I used to always go to the Newcastle ones. And Lisa Bell, who is like in charge of all the women's programs, she used to coach me when I was tiny and dumpy and couldn't kick a ball. And I vividly remember Lisa Bell always being there, and Jill Stacey, who was also at the women's team. But I used to go to every camp there was. I loved it.
Yeah, I actually, not that I remember, I don't think I did. Like, I just remember all the 6 weeks holidays. Well, it probably is because of age as well. But we just used to like jump us for goalposts, and it was like boys, girls, everyone from the area used to come. There was one ball, and if it was your ball, like as soon as you were annoyed, you took your ball home and the game was finished. Like,
and everything was in black and white. And the ball was made out of pigskin.
You would pick your teams, and they'd be really unfair, and then everyone would get annoyed and go home, and you take your ball, so you were in charge. Like, it was very much like that, and we used to play for hours and hours and hours. And like the fields, obviously, still, Kiva actually lives near the field where we used to play, and it was just very like unorganized street football, and it would go on every single day of every single holiday. So that's kind of more what we used to do. But yeah, it was fun.
I mean, that's the story of every kid in Newcastle. You know what I mean? Just I think now with the takeover, I think hopefully you get more of that. I'm not sure if it's gone down over the years, but just that's what. If we didn't have a football, I mean, this is back in the 90s. I'm almost 40 now, so we'd literally scrunch up newspaper and sellotape it together.
Yeah.
Play football with jumpers as goalposts as well. So like,
no, this is gonna make me sound really old, but I remember we used to play with bottle tops in the yard, because you only actually had a football on one of the days. So like if you were in year 3 or 4, your football day would be Monday. So like what else did you do till Friday? So would like go in the drinks cart, steal someone's bottle top off and play. God, that makes us feel a lot older than what I am.
Oh, I love that though. I love that.
That's it.
I'm like getting all like, because I read loads of books about play, especially from Newcastle in the Northeast and stuff like that. So just like, that just resonates with me in that respect, obviously, but that's awesome.
It's so true. Gascoigne used to basically just
I was thinking Gaz actually.
Gaza used to just kick a can in the street, in the alley. That's it. Back off the garage, that's it.
No,
that's awesome. That's so cool. So I think before we kind of talk about the Newcastle of it all, which we've talked about a little bit, we should talk about kind of women's football in general in England, because I don't think that a lot of our listeners, I think outside of knowing that there's a Super League, it doesn't get a lot of coverage in the States. And so I think that really a lot of our listeners specifically, and maybe even over there as well, don't really know how it works, right? And so maybe we could talk a little bit about that, because like I said, after the Super League started in 2010, we don't really have much else. And we don't really, I think a lot of our US listeners don't really know where Newcastle lie in that as well. So maybe you could kind of break down how the women's leagues work.
Do you want to kickstart on me?
Whatever.
Well, obviously, it's very different over home to what it is here, because obviously when we come here, we're all scratch and dying to play football, and we actually play on a Friday in a men's league, on a Sunday on a men's league. But there's like over here, we haven't found sort of like apart from the top level, no lower
Like
league women. Yeah, not so much
yeah.
recreation, but like no lower leagues than the top level in women's game. Where obviously at home you have the 2 WSL teams, 2 leagues, obviously, and then you have the National League. Then you have obviously the Division 1, which is where Newcastle are based. So like they're sort of the 4th league, 4th tier.
Okay, so it's like 4 leagues, right?
Yeah, so there's the Division 1, and then it's just National League, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's like, it's obviously WSL 1, Championship, the National League, and then the Northern Premier, but then there's also ones lower than that.
And then obviously
that would kind of be more like a non-league equivalent for the men's. Is that how that would work?
Yeah, like it goes down to maybe I think it's tier 7.
Yeah.
But then after tier 7, then you've got local regional leagues, and
it's equally so for example, when Newcastle are at tier 4, there's Division 1 North and there's Division 1 South. So there is loads of leagues. Whereas obviously we come over here and there was just nothing. I was like, surely there's 11-a-side rec team or something that we can just play in. Do you know what I mean? But there doesn't seem to be. So obviously, unless I'm just not looking in the right places, there's a lot of provision for women to play at home. And I mean, all the leagues, I mean, are an all right standard, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? Like, it gets more competitive as you go up, but even the league before Newcastle's is still competitive. It's still like of an all right standard.
There seems to be nothing here for if the people who are in between, like when you leave college here and you're not a professional.
Yeah,
there seems to be nothing in between, and so it's funny because we play like co-ed on a Friday night, like Reece said. So the rules of that game, it's 8-a-side, and you have to have 2 girls in your team, or you play with a player less. And if a girl scores, it counts as 2.
What?
Yeah, if a girl scores, it counts as 2.
The first game, they're like, give it to the chicks. Their goal counts as 2. And I was like, oh God, how like undermining is that?
I mean, I was gonna say that comes off a little. I don't know if sexist, but like condescending. Yeah.
But then obviously for them to then have girls who can actually score, they do love you, don't they? Like,
because she was like, oh, I swear I've just heard them say if we score counts as 2, and I went, shut up, man, like that's not the case. And then lo and behold, they were like, you know, you go up front, you go and play on the wing, and I went, the wing, me. And then I realized, I was like, oh, I get why you want us to play on the wing, like counts as 2. So it's funny. It's quite funny.
That's I mean, we'll talk more about the American side of it. For like, I will touch on the kind of disconnect. It's a frustration that I share as well, like coaching girls rugby, because I coach under 12s, and when the girls get to 12, they either have to decide, like, you kind of move into proper tackle, right? And you know, I won't talk too much rugby about it, but they're going to move into tackle, but there's no real female outlets for them to go, so they have to go to co-ed leagues. And you know, girls don't want to be, you know, especially girls 12. Man, some of them don't want to be tackling with boys and everything like that, or you know, they don't want to, or they just don't want to go into a co-ed league, right? And so there's really no avenue for that. And then you get into college, depending on the university you go to, they might have a women's side, and then you kind of goes from there. But that's crazy about that, especially because, you know, I mean, arguably, you know, women's football is better over here in comparison to our men's football, right? Like our national team, you know, completely just outshines our men's team. And you think that with that, I mean, I know that they're going through a lot with what they're trying to fight for and everything like that, but with the expansion of the pro league here, you'd think that those avenues would be a lot more prevalent, right? And
I mean, especially with the amount of people who play the game over here. So like the difference, obviously we'll probably get on with the difference between football here and football at home is just like crazy. And the amount of players you have here, you would think there was a structure, you would think there would be something for them, but there's not. And it's like,
no,
like I don't get it. I don't get it, but yeah.
Well, I mean, it's disappointing. So going back to the English side of things, is promotion and relegation the same as it is for the men's side? Like, can any team get promoted? Like the two, like the championship and the Premier League, Super League equivalents, could any team move up in those ranks, kind of like on the men's side of things?
They've got to have the support from the club, don't they? Like to go to like certain levels. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, for a local team, if they had a really good local team, obviously you've then got to have the backing and the support of a club, because obviously financial, like you can't, like you've got to pay for that. Do you know what I mean? So obviously I know where Newcastle are at now, tier 4, doing really, really well. Top of the league actually just this morning. Yeah, they meet this morning, so that's great. Obviously you've got to have the backing from a club financially. Do you know what I mean? Just the women's game isn't quite there yet. So
So if they win this league, would they get promoted to tier 3? Or but it would still, they would still need financial backing in order to kind of be able to survive.
Not to tier 3.
No, the criteria kind of looks different. So the lower you are, the criteria is like, you know, you need a certain level of pitch, or you need seating and things like that. But then as you get higher, so they could go up to tier 3 fine, like the provision they've got probably matches at tier 3 and probably some championship teams. But then as you go from tier 3 to championship, you've got to have, you know, a pathway into it. You can't just be like, you know, you've got to have some kind of, you know, provision for young players to progress into, like an RTC. You've got to have, you know, finances to pay people. You've got to have certain number of staff, certain conditioning, doctors. Like it becomes really, you know, like difficult for teams. Like difficult. You can't just win a league and go up. Like you've got to have everything in place so it's sustainable for you. And so girls or like women get the opportunity to play in these leagues, but you know, also are well looked after. You know, costs are covered and things like that, so they can play in them. So it does get a lot harder.
Because in the past, that's where the bids have come in, haven't there? There's been like a few seasons where like teams can bid to go up.
They don't necessarily have to win the league in some years.
They've got you've got to be able to prove though that you sort of, because that's what Sunderland did, didn't they? You've got to be able to prove that you're sort of there or thereabouts, that you'd be able to compete. Like, there couldn't be the bottom team who've not won a team all season be like, oh, we've got the money, we can go up, but you haven't got the actual ability. Do you know what I mean? So there has been times where I think it's where teams who are sort of rightfully should move up haven't had the backing or haven't had the infrastructure, whatever. So then the FA have opened it up to bids and like, can you prove on points per game that you should move up and that sort of stuff. Because I think Newcastle tried that last season.
But I think there was a one where Huddersfield had made a statement one time, Huddersfield women, because I think they were winning the league, or they had won the league. It was in the COVID year, and they'd said, didn't they come out and say we won't go up this year? Like they'd openly said we won't go up this year if we win the league. So some
then
team,
it opens up, doesn't it?
Then it opens up. So if the top of the league don't want to go up or can't physically do it, then it gives other teams an opportunity to try and bid and get up.
Wow, that's really interesting. So it's even more reliant on financial stuff. I mean, I'm not surprised, but the fact that you could say, okay, like, you know, like say Swansea in the men's equivalent, right, get promoted and decide, oh, we're not going to do it because it's just really not financially viable for us. Having that option is kind of crazy. But then the idea that like your 16th place team, just because they get an influx of money, could bid to get brought into the, you know, next league, even though they don't really have the players to support playing in that league is insane as well. Like,
I mean, equally, they probably wouldn't get like. I think it's a balance of like, you've got to prove performance-wise as well as the other side. But I mean, you see it in the Northeast, like Sunderland were the highest team and they got all the best players. Then Durham went high and they got the best players, and now they're sort of competing. And so when that does happen, players just sort of move about. Do you know what I mean?
So that would probably be a big part of, because there's a lot of professional women footballers that I follow on like Instagram and stuff like that, and I see that they seem to switch clubs a lot more frequently than the average kind of, you know, male player would, right? And so that's probably a big reason as to why, right?
Yes, obviously, like there's lots of reasons in the women's game. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like obviously finance in comparison to the men's game is like there's no comparison. Do you know what I mean? And I think obviously it depends what clubs are offering and where clubs are at, and it's quite, I would say it's unstable. Like, would you describe it as unstable? Like it can be quite unstable in terms of like performance and how team like losing 2 key players can really massively impact a women's team. Do you know what I mean? So I suppose move around a little bit more.
Yeah, that's so interesting to find out. So what do you think it would take? So is there a potential for Newcastle to move up the leagues? Like now, especially now, we obviously have the finances as a club, but has it got to be a bit of both? Like you've got to bring the best coaches, but then some players, and then obviously move the leagues, and then obviously build it slowly.
I mean, definitely.
Is that the way it would work?
I mean, they're on track to go up. Like, hopefully, touch wood, they go up this year. Like, it kind of might even happen quite naturally for Newcastle. They go up this year, they get promoted into Tier 3. Like, they've got a good team for Tier 4 now, so they would do. I've got no doubts that they would compete really well in Tier 3. So, and then obviously with the backing of the club, like, it could happen really quite soon for Newcastle, I think. In the next 2 to 3 years.
I mean, Amanda Stavley's openly said she's there to support the women. Obviously, we don't know what that looks like. Obviously, it could look in different ways, but they're very much backing the women. They've got the potential. They're top of the league. They're absolutely battering teams. So they're just
like 10-0 2 weeks
ago. Yeah, I saw that 10-0.
Yeah, so they're just
playing some of them up front for Newcastle men.
They're kind of like, I don't know, slowly building towards that. Like, I'd look at Newcastle now and the provision that they have, the players that they have, the structures, all that. It doesn't really replicate like what you would expect a Tier 4. It's more
championship.
Like a lot of the stuff that they have is championship kind of support. So they, it's not, when Newcastle eventually get to go up, it's not going to be massive changes for them, because they're already building towards that for players, and hopefully the results will keep coming, and then they'll go up next year, and then if the bidding opens up, hopefully they'll be successful. But they've got probably majority of stuff already in place, or kind of there and thereabouts.
I mean, they do S&C, they've got performance analysis,
psychologist.
Psychologist is in there. We've got Josh McLaren in there. Obviously the training facilities, like they get big buses, like they've got the whole like infrastructure, the whole package. It's just they then need to get up the league. So they finish the season, they can get up in the next league. Hopefully that might entice a few extra players to come in, and it sort of works like that, really.
That makes sense. And so I saw when I was over there, they were playing Druid Park is where they always play, correct?
Yeah.
And then where do you guys train at?
The academy, the men's academy.
Oh, you train there as well?
Yeah. Great facilities.
So then let's talk a little bit about your guys' careers playing out there. Because that's interesting. That I didn't realize that you guys trained there as well. But so obviously, we talked a little bit about the future, and we'll get more into that as well, and like kind of our hopes, especially with the takeover and everything. But what's it been like? What was it like being footballers? I mean, we'll talk. We can talk about the Middlesbrough and the Sunderland of it all as well, because that's part of your guys' career. But we want to mainly focus on the Newcastle of it all. Sorry, Courtney. You guys got an Amazon. I mean, you guys got a Netflix special, okay?
I don't need it.
But so what did that look like? Because obviously, you were all playing under the Ashley era, and I don't think really anybody knows what that looked like for the women's side of things, because he was so just secretive about everything.
I mean, obviously for me, when I went, the structure didn't look any different really. I went maybe 5 years ago, and I mean, I suppose we got my last couple of years in Newcastle, we got the psychologist in, and we started doing S&C, which we probably didn't do when we first went there. When I first went to Newcastle, it was kind of like you train twice a week, you play on a weekend. We still trained at the academy, so we're still given that opportunity, and still had buses provided to us, and so we're always well looked after. Obviously, it was very largely linked with the foundation. The foundation really looked after us, and we're under the foundation's banner. But the difference wasn't too much, really. We still trained, like by the time I left, we still trained at the academy, we still provided buses, the foundation looked after us. The difference was we started getting S&C, performance analysis, psychologist in. But the difference for me wasn't too much, and I was there a good 5 seasons. So we've always been well looked after, like no matter what order I was in.
Yeah, but obviously when I was very first there, I don't think that it kind of come as much under the foundation branch as it does now. So it was ran really differently. Like we didn't like train at the academy were, you know, it was very different. It was ran very different. It was kind of ran with like a, you know, a parent committee who would like, it was typically a parent was the secretary, the club secretary and things like that. It was very much
like club football.
Yeah, that I'm trying to think about how to explain it. Yeah. And then like a few years later, the foundation kind of come in and their staff ran it, and it just kind of from there just went from strength to strength. And then the men then started to support, and we've trained at the academy for years now. Like I feel like even before I went to Middlesbrough, we were at the academy, I think. So it kind of went from strength to strength when the foundation took more kind of hold on it. So yeah, there's been a lot of changes, like positive changes since then, but definitely the backing of the foundation and the men's team just took it from strength to strength, really.
That's really nice to hear, to be honest. Especially just during like, it's nice to know that like things were kind of moving in the right direction when it felt like for the last 14 years, lots of things on the men's side of things weren't. So that's really refreshing to hear. So what's the academy like? You know, I mean, I've never talked to anybody that's even been to the academy, and I mean, Rich might have a little more insight on that, but I bet a lot of our American listeners don't know much about it either.
I mean, it's great. Obviously, I don't know. I think they might be making more changes to it now since they've been took over. I'm pretty sure they are. But I mean, loads of fields, absolutely. Like, I mean, we played on one field, so we had the 3G fully floodlit, great facility, great pitches. But we played on the same one. But as you get there, there's any amount of grass field that are well looked after, and then there's more on the other side as well. Obviously, you've got it's not a clubhouse. It's like a clubhouse. It's got a cafe. It's got changing rooms. It's got meeting room, everything. Obviously, we used to go in and we used to get photos done, and we've got like all the facilities for that, and it's great. I mean, it's like a professional team.
They've got like two facilities. They don't join because they've got the indoor barn as well.
Yeah,
they don't join.
They do. They're back on each other. Yeah.
So we've got like an outdoor fields and then an indoor barn, which is just huge.
That's where the men used to train.
That's where the men and sometimes the academy go, I think. And then there they've got like a really nice grass pitch, which we used to play on. It's called Blue Flames. We used to play on that a few times in the season. So it's just endless amounts of, fields for all the teams. Like women, academies, the men's, 23s, 18s. Like it's good.
Yeah. So we would get there on a night time. Obviously our training was later with us being women and work, and through the day we would get there late, and all the boys academy teams would be coming off and would sort of cross paths with them, and then we would be going on.
That's amazing. It's such a big operation, isn't it? You know, when you think about it, because a lot of fans just, you know, focus on the first team and results, and sometimes, and if we're losing, like, you know, they'll blame the owner, the manager, or the players. Sometimes it's quite, take a step back and you think, well, you've got the under-16s, you've got the academy, the school of excellence, you've got all these little streams kind of feeding into this, you know.
Yeah, that's massive.
Newcastle. So it's quite, just to remember, you have to fit in where you fit in, whether, you know, don't worry about things out of your control kind of things.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And so how's the season structured? Because I know it is different than how the men's leagues are structured. Is there a domestic cup? Do you guys have domestic cups as well within the leagues, like an FA Cup equivalent? I don't know. And then is there also how do your seasons operate in terms of when they run? Because when I was over, it seemed like you guys had a massive break in December and January that was much larger than an international break. And so so I don't really. Yeah, how does that all work?
So the season goes from August, like it's kind of mid-August till the end of May. So in that you've got the FA Cup, you've got the League Cup, and then depending on when you get knocked out, you can also be entered into a plate. So the earlier you're knocked out the League Cup, you can go into then the plate. But then the later you're in that cup, you don't qualify for the plate. And then there's also like local county cups. So there's quite a few games played throughout the year, obviously depending on how far you get in all these competitions. But some teams can qualify for the county cup, some teams don't. It depends kind of what league you're in. So I know at one point, if Newcastle were in tier 3, I don't think they could play in the county cup. I don't know what the rules are now, but
I'm not sure if they're playing in it this year, are they? We played. That was actually our last game that we played in, was the county cup final. It was amazing. But I don't know. I think they were talking about when really the women. I would personally say the women probably shouldn't play in it. I think it's more for like local teams,
right.
And it's a little bit unfair because of the support and that the women have comparison to other teams. But I mean, it was always great playing it. I love playing in it.
Well, it was our last game on Blue Flames, and it was a great time. But yeah, so there's a few competitions. I've covered everything in terms of cups there.
It's funny that you say that they don't get much of a break over Christmas, because obviously my best friend Grace, she was like messaging us, and I mean they had their last game, was it like the 22nd or something of December? It was like a few days before Christmas, and then obviously the coach had them back in like 30th or something. Like they didn't really, it was maybe even closer, because obviously one game's just before Christmas, and then they're back in like literally 2nd or the 1st of January.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? So in comparison to men, where they don't get really anything off, obviously equally that's their full-time job. And obviously for a woman who, if you work full-time and coach as well, like you literally don't get any time off. It is quite intense, but it's what.
And is that pretty standard for most female players, that they have to work a full-time job or coach full-time on top of playing?
It obviously just depends. Obviously, a lot of the kids now at Newcastle, I mean, the average age was what? They worked it out the other day. The average age of Newcastle women's now is, I think it's below 20. So a lot of the kids there are still at uni, still at college. So they don't work. Whereas obviously a lot of us, when we were there, we were coaching at the RTC part-time, which was about 50 hours a week or something, and then a full-time job plus Newcastle, which is a lot of hours, a lot of commitment. You've got to do analysis away from football and S&C and psychologist stuff, and so it is a lot. It is a big commitment you take on playing at Newcastle.
What was the training breakdown? So what was because obviously I used to row. It was very similar, like in that if you're trying to get into like an Olympic squad or semi-pro of different sports, you do have to do bar jobs or coach here and that kind of thing. It's a lot of hours dedicated. So I know in strength and conditioning, were you doing 3 hours a day playing football, 2 hours a day, or?
I mean, it depends. So obviously when we were at university, we trained every day, played twice, sometimes 3 times a week, futsal on top of it. So when you're at university, you're like, how much you're playing is like really high. Plus you're playing, doing 2 lots of strength and conditioning and all that stuff. Obviously, once you then leave uni and you go into a job, we trained. You do 2 hours Tuesday, 2 hour Thursday. You did your an hour S&C, your performance analysis, then your games on a weekend. So obviously it did drop a little bit. But when you're at uni, or equally when you're at college, it's like playing full time, isn't it?
Oh, there's a lot of them still like at Newcastle now who are like studying full time at university and college, who are playing futsal on the Saturday, game on the Sunday, game on the Wednesday, training Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Like it's a lot.
It was great. I loved it.
Yeah, it was. Like
it keeps you really busy. It keeps you really busy.
Until you don't do it anymore, and you're like, God, I was really lucky to be able to do that.
That's awesome.
It's amazing.
So then, I mean that's just such great insight. I really like. I didn't know. I mean, obviously, I didn't know any of that. But obviously, how would I? But that's really interesting. So then, for your families, right? Because Courtney, I know that you're from Sunderland, so I'm assuming your entire family supports Sunderland. What was that like? Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. No, it is. It is. Yes, it is.
What was it like for them? You know,
not to be a diehard Sunderland fan, but it is.
No. So yes, it is.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yes, but see, when my dad is like, he supports Sunderland, but I almost want to say like he supports women's football more. So like my dad, obviously, I keep obviously mentioning me best friend, like we were brought up together, like so he is every weekend he's either at Newcastle Women, who, like, if it was a choice between going to Newcastle Women game or a Sunderland men's game, Newcastle Women would win hands down. Do you know what I mean? It's like that. Sunderland Women, Sunderland men, Sunderland Women would win hands down. Like, even Newcastle Women, probably over Sunderland Women, Newcastle would win hands down. Like, he's a Sunderland fan, but he's also a Newcastle Women, Sunderland Women, Middlesbrough Women, like, ultra fan as well. So
we should give him a little shout out too, because I've been following him on Instagram for over a year now.
Colin Lock, go look at his photos. They're great.
He takes all the great photos of all the women in the Northeast playing.
He does.
Whereas for me, it's a little bit different. So, like, I was brought up in a family that football is just nothing. Like we were talking about this the other day. Obviously, Courtney's like dad played football. Like, they watched football. Whereas, like, no one really in my family really bothered about football. They care about Newcastle, like probably like everyone average does. But football wasn't really a big thing in my family. But it's really only me that loves it.
That's interesting. So it wasn't so it doesn't seem like there was any like familial controversies with playing for Sunderland or playing for Newcastle or Middlesbrough or anything like that. Which is great.
Well, I mean, your family like to have a little bit of a dig. Oh, you play for Sunderland.
Of course, yeah. Bit better.
Ball, so but yeah, really.
That's awesome. So then what's one of your favorite, like each of yours favorite memories from, you know, even if it's not playing for Newcastle, but just playing in England before we start talking about your American lives now?
I don't know. There's so many. Obviously, like playing at uni and like we won Bucks championships 4 times over the futsal. But I don't know. There's one actually that was when I was younger and I played for Blythe. It was club football when I was younger, and we actually went over to Gothia and played in the Gothia Cup, and we represented England, and we played in big stadiums, and we actually played against an American team from over here. I can't remember the name of them now, and they went and beat us in the semi-finals or something. And but that was probably my best memories. Like, it was just away, like full-time football for a week, playing games all day, every day on big stadiums. That was amazing. I loved that.
Obviously I've got loads of good memories from like going, like when you get to the finals with universities and colleges, you go and play the Keepmoat, like we played and won at the Keepmoat, and you go to all like the big stadiums, like they were always like really memorable. Like, you're traveling away with your friends, you go and play in these big games, but the most memorable was probably winning the league with Newcastle.
Brilliant.
And I was only young. I think I was like 17, 18, and it was to get promoted out the league that they're in now to go up. And it was like on the last day of the season, it was between us and Sheffield Wednesday, and we were playing Sheffield Wednesday at Sheffield. I know, it was like you couldn't write it really. So that came down to us two, and we were away. And we won. I think it was 3-0, but it was 3-0. And it was just, obviously, as you can imagine, absolute scenes. And then our reserves were playing at the same day. And then when we stopped at Wetherby to come back, like they were there at the same time. And it was just like, it was crazy. It was carnage. But yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Awesome.
It was. Yeah. Yeah, it's very vivid that I can really remember that. Like, I can remember like the first goal, who scored it, what it was like. Because at the time I was only like young, and it was just such a big occasion. Obviously, go down there and go for promotion. Like, it was great. It was definitely my most memorable time.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't even have an equivalent in my life for that, but that's fantastic. Before we move on, I guess one more thing from me is like, what's the support like? Because obviously everybody knows about the 52,000 at St. James Park and everything like that, and you know, we're the best fans in the land. What's the support like for the women's?
They are nowhere near that. Obviously Newcastle are building quite a fan base now. You see the regulars there, and obviously the stands there. And I mean, I'll not even go into numbers because the numbers don't even compare. But obviously there is support there. Obviously, when I was at Sunderland, the support was probably slightly, well, it was a lot bigger. And obviously, where the higher up in the leagues you go, there's more support there. But they have their regular fans, don't they? And Obviously they're building a lot more, like obviously for example like there's more interest through social media, and obviously now the men are sort of being taken over, there's supporting them, there is a lot more support there, but obviously nothing in comparison.
The numbers are going up. Like I remember, like when I'm talking, like when I played obviously back in the day, like compared to then, there's the numbers have grown loads, and like now the men are really active at retweeting when they're playing, and obviously, you know, however many thousand Twitter followers the men have, it's starting to reach more people now.
I mean, for example, next weekend they're in the FA Cup, and they're playing at the Falcons in Kingston.
I know, I was going to bring that up.
People watching this, go down to the Falcons ground in Kingston Park next week.
So there's obviously the capacity for 10,000 there, and obviously they're trying to get a really big rally going to get them down there for the FA Cup game, because they're playing against a team in the league above. So it'll be a really good game.
I mean, I would be there in a heartbeat if I was.
So would we.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I love that stadium as well, because I would go to Falcons games as well. But that's. I mean, I saw that online. I was like, oh, that's fantastic for them. Like,
this is the kind of opportunities they're getting now. Like, obviously, like hopefully they might get played St James's Park one time. Obviously, we played to Newcastle. This is probably quite a good memorable thing.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, after I said my memorable thing, I thought that's not even memorable, Rhiannon. Like we played Newcastle played against Sunderland. It was in the FA Cup, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In the FA Cup, and we played at the Stadium of Light. That was a really big game. So obviously, like, more opportunities are being given to the women, and obviously the men are supporting them a little bit more. So you never know, you might see them at St James's Park a couple of times, maybe before the men's games or whatever, which will obviously get that support and backing a little bit more. Because I think obviously back in the day, women's football, the level of women's football probably wasn't great. So I remember when I was really young and watching like England women play on the telly, and I was like, God, it's so slow. Like, because you compare it to the men's naturally.
Of course,
of course. Now you watch the women's game and it's great. Like it's entertaining, like it's thrilling. Do you know what I mean? And the level is just improved so much. So I think actually when more people start to go watch Newcastle, they'll be like, wow, it's really good to watch. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have loved to have gotten to a match when I was out there. It was on my like list of things. It just didn't work out with the timing of me being there. But yeah, like that's great that they're getting more opportunities and that there's a lot of potential for growth there, and you know, and especially with, you know, Stavely coming in and kind of making that statement and going and visiting the club. Like, I don't know if Mike Ashley ever did that while you guys were there. I mean,
No.
but yeah, you know, I thought that was pretty huge to see on social media and everything.
Yeah, supposedly she was lovely. I think it was a really, really nice touch. Really good.
Yeah, it was great. Well, let's talk a little bit about your new lives out here, which is pretty new, correct? Right? It was within this last year that you both moved out to. Okay, last 6 months.
Yeah, it was actually 6 months, like a couple of days ago. I've been here 6 months.
Wow.
Happy 6-month anniversary. Belated. Yeah. So let's talk about that. How did you end up in? I mean, you're in sunny Southern California now. You're both coaching. How did that all kind of come to be, and what's that been like for you guys?
It's really good. It's something I've always wanted to do, and I don't know, like the only way I can describe it is like, you know, like life takes you on different tracks. So I kind of wanted, when I left Northumbria, I was like, right, this is going to be the year I'm going to go. And then I got, you know, offered quite a good job at the time. So then I was like, right, okay, I'll do this, and then I'll go then. And then, you know, just things kind of happened. And then I like last year, and I love playing. I've worked at Sunderland Girls Academy for 10 years. Like, I loved that. So they were always really hard to leave. And then I got, you know, lo and behold, I was like nearly 28, and I was like, right, you know, if it's going to happen, like, it's really got to happen now, because I'm starting to get more commitments at home. Like, I had bought a house and things like that. So I was like, it's got to happen kind of now if I want to go. But obviously then COVID hit. So, and obviously you had kind of always wanted to go. And then, I don't know, I just kind of thought the chances of it are just very slim in this current climate now. Like, who leaves their life in Newcastle to go out and coach in Southern California like that in a pandemic? Like, that's not going to happen. But we're really fortunate now. I look back on it that, you know, we got help from someone called Matt Brown, who kind of like is the communication between clubs here and coaches at home. And like luckily this club were looking for 2 coaches to kind of grow their girls program. And that's kind of where I come from. And he just kind of said, look, we've got this offer where a club are looking for 2 full-time female coaches. Like, would you be interested? And I was like, absolutely, like, of course, California.
Oh, amazing.
And so sorry, Rich, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say how has it been? Just basically getting into first of all, California. I mean, I can speak from experience, just like coming from Newcastle and London and just plopping in California. What's it been like?
I mean, it doesn't compare, does it? I mean, obviously, apart from missing your family and friends, I mean, the lifestyle, the weather, everything over here is just, it's amazing. So it took a little bit on the caution side, a little bit of adjusting, because the culture at the women's game at home, the culture at the women's game here is very different. But I mean, the lifestyle's amazing. I mean, we got here in the peak of summer, and I think Courtney actually melted, to be fair. It was like, in some days, like 104 Fahrenheit and that, and I was just like, I can't breathe. Like, we were out like playing football yesterday, and it was only 19 degrees Celsius, and we're like, God, I can't breathe. I can't imagine what it's going to be like when it's like 40s or whatever in the summer.
You'll get used to it. Yeah.
The lifestyle just doesn't compare. Obviously, like, you've got a pool, it's hot, you go to the beach. Like, obviously, we work full time, like coaching, obviously, so predominantly our working hours on an evening when we're coaching, and obviously bits through the day. But compared to home, I mean, it's beautiful. Like, everywhere you go is just mountains. Like, it's lush.
Yeah. It's awesome. So you're basically full-time coaches now.
Yeah, full time.
So that's the full-time job, and that's the American dream right there. You know.
Yeah, it literally is. That's how I would describe it.
I mean, all we ever used to say when we were at home, obviously we both worked at the RTC. All I ever used to say at home is like, I would love this job full time. That's all I ever wanted. Like, my drive was to help. Obviously, apart from playing football as well, was just to help kids have the coaching that I never had when I was younger. And like, I just like would do anything. We both would any like extra hours to putting things together just to help the kids. But obviously, it was a lot on top of a full time job, and you just were worn at the ground. Whereas here, this is our full time job, so you have all them extra hours to do whatever you want. Do you know what I mean? And still getting to do what you love. So it is amazing. Like, you can't compare it to home.
Dream come true, right?
What's the day-to-day look like? I mean, you just mentioned that you guys coach in the evenings, but what's kind of the day-to-day look like for your jobs? And also, like, because you're each coaching different age groups, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So maybe talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, well, obviously the day-to-day is like we work, we coach, is it five till about 8 on an evening, depending. Some days are shorter, depending on what the girls have got in. Obviously, they do IXL, strength and conditioning. And we tend to work Monday to Thursday with our clubs. And then on a weekend, obviously, we both have 2 teams each. So I do the 08 GA. So we play, we have teams in the GA, which is the highest level in America. And then we have teams in the DPL, which is the second highest level in America. So it's very, very competitive. So I have the team in the 08 GA, which is the highest, and then an 06 DPL. So it's under 14s, under 16s. So sometimes they'll have a game. One will have a game on a Saturday, one will have a game on a Sunday. And it could be at home or it could be away, Santa Monica or whatever. So obviously we spend evenings coaching, and then Saturday, Sunday, it could be at home where you're away for the morning, or it could be away where you'd spend half your day there. And then it's good because obviously we want to explore while we're here as well. So we get wherever we're playing, LA, San Diego, Santa Monica, wherever it is, we then just explore there the second half of the day. And obviously then there's just the other side to what full-time coaching is, meeting with parents, analysis, that sort of stuff. But no, it's a really good life balance, really, isn't it?
Yeah, mine is literally the same. That my week looks exactly the same as that. So no boy with any extra details. Mine is literally the same.
You're a different age group, correct?
Yeah, so I'm 09 GA, which is under 13s, and 08 DPL, which is under 14s. So they play Saturday and Sunday. So we are really lucky because we've managed to do a lot of our traveling and sightseeing like through the games as such. So yeah. We've actually traveled.
You guys always see them all over the place.
So we're like, where would it be? What's near there? La Jolla, right? Okay, like let's go there, kind of thing. So it is cool.
That's awesome.
You'll have to come out to San Diego. That's it.
Yeah, San
That's
Diego.
lovely. I really like it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, next time you're down, you definitely have to let us know. We'd love to meet up with you, and
Oh,
maybe we could go to a game or something.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because like I said, we'll have the Wave here next season, but even the men's team here, they're in the league below the MLS. They're a great time as well. It's good fun.
Yeah.
You mentioned culturally a little bit different.
Yeah.
From UK to the US. Can you tell me a bit more about that? The differences?
Obviously, I mean, it's very different. Obviously, I think there's more pressure over here, I would say, on kids and the women's game because obviously the pathway is different. So to get selected for like women's teams or national teams, a lot of it is through colleges. So then kids they're driven to get to a D1 college, trying to get the highest level. So obviously then that filters down to when they're younger. The pressure's a little bit high, I would say, put on them from obviously parents or themselves or whatever. So I think it's obviously there's maybe a little bit more pressure there, and obviously then the culture that matches that, and obviously it's very different. It's a business over here, so clubs are run as a business. Do you know what I mean? So at home, what you pay in a club over here to what you pay at home is very, very different, substantially different. Obviously, at home, I would say the kids' game or youth game, should I say, is very much development, and I just think the whole like how the FA run it at home and the pathway is different to what it is over here. Yeah, do you want to expand on that?
No, you probably hit the nail on the head. The kids play a lot over here. Like there is, like I always say, if I was a parent over here, like I don't know how they have lives. I mean, at home equally it is the same because they're out 3 and 4 times a week, but over here it's like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then they're traveling away all day Saturday, then they've got another game on the Sunday, and then they're traveling away all day. So the culture over here is they play a lot. They go to a lot of tournaments where they'll play 3, 4, 5 games in a weekend, which is quite unheard of at home. Like when we first come here, we were like, what? They've got 5 games this weekend. How is that possible? But that's just that's how it is, and that's what they're used to. And when you coach over here, you just kind of have to get used to that as well. Like that's how much they play. So yeah, I'd say you probably hit the nail on the head with it.
It's quite interesting, actually. So I read a paper the other day about long-term athlete development to the kids, and what they're finding is that kids that specify too early on, they might have an earlier dropout rate.
I think there's the burnout that comes with it. Obviously at home, like kids are encouraged to play a second sport. It's very much like football is your life, but there's more to life, and like obviously education's very much like promoted, and they'll train a couple of times a week, they'll play a game on a weekend, and whereas over here it's football, and you don't really hear the girls play any other sport.
We do have a few girls who played tag,
touch American football.
Yeah, okay.
So there's like a couple of girls, and that was really interesting because they were an all girls team playing in an all boys league, so we used to watch them because they do it. What is it called? Flag football.
Like American football,
yeah, and they were all Marietta soccer girls on a team playing against all boys teams, and they got to the final, and it was so good for them. But apart from that, like that was a Friday, they could do that because that was a Friday night, and that's probably the only day off that they get, and it's a shorter season, I think, but they don't really have much. I don't know how they would fit in another sport. I don't know of many other than that who could fit that in other than PE. Yeah. Just because soccer's so over here, you train most weeks, and then a lot of the time they have double weekends. Like Saturday, Sunday games. So,
but equally, I think like obviously lessons learned. I think England could take a little bit of lessons from America, because I think at home it's very much like, oh, you can't overload them. No, like if they've played 1 game in a weekend, that's it. Or do you know what I mean? They can't. Whereas over here, it's like, oh, you've got 4 games, right? Okay, like sometimes we play 3 full games in a day. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, like you have big squads, but sometimes they play 3 full games in a day, and it's like at home that would never be the case. And I think like that's the difference between the American internationals and the English internationals, is that actually they play a lot more. Do you know what I mean? They're exposed to it a lot more. And I think, like, in terms of standards, when we talk about this at home, I mean, the kids at home that we used to coach are amazing. But obviously, I think that the level over here, probably because there's a lot more players to pick from, but the level over here is far above England.
Yeah, I think we've got to meet somewhere in the middle, though. I personally think, it here, it's a lot of loading, and like, I think as you go up to the age group, you start to see a lot of like serious injuries. There's a lot of ACLs happening over here, MCLs. There's a lot of kids getting, you know, surgery at quite young ages over here. Which is not as common as at home. Or not as many are as common. Obviously, you do get serious injuries, but when you come here, you see a lot of kids with knee braces on, knee strapping, ankle strapping, you know, all these like things to kind of help them play. And I do think it has a lot to do with the fact that they play so much. So I do think it has to be somewhere in the middle, whereas England could arguably play a little bit more, I think. But then sometimes these could play a little bit less in the week, or their loading could look a little bit different in the week.
It's the spot. You're spot on there with the loading of the athlete, because what happens is, so you say they play 3 or 4 games, the best way to recover is actually not in another game. It's the intensity needs to drop down a lot more, like 50-60%, like active recovery. You're doing your hot showers or your ice baths, or just not playing, or even like, you know, spending a bit more time doing the strength work off instead of just playing.
Yeah, and as we said, it's so competitive over here. Tournaments, league games, you know, there is a lot of emphasis on winning, so the intensity of the game, like, the kids don't have that opportunity to take it down to 60%. It's like relentless for first game, second game, third game, fourth game. And like, obviously we're really fortunate, like the club we're at, you know, we do have IXL on the Tuesday, so the kids do get exposure to the strength stuff and the recovery, but not every club over here has that. So there are kids here who do the same as what our kids do, but they don't have that opportunity in the midweek to kind of be looked after from the physical standpoint. So that is, you know, that is where you do later on see the knee braces and all that. It comes from that. So our kids are really fortunate in that sense.
No, that's great. I mean, yeah, because you absolutely need that on top of your training and everything else. Like, it's so integral to all of that. That's really, really interesting. And so how's the season layout for the leagues that you're working in now? Is it very similar to England, or I mean, obviously you play a lot more games, but is it the same kind of date ranges?
Yeah, it pretty much is, isn't it? Obviously, they have a longer break. So, obviously, high school plays into this. So we have age groups all the way, like at GA and DPL, from under 13s to under 19s. So obviously, my age group is the cut-off age group. So mine at 08 is the last age group that's not high school. So so mine and Courtney's teams go all the way through the year, whereas the rest of the age groups have a break where they go play high school. So they have a gap from like December to March where they go play high school. So they have like a big league, like they start the league, a lot of games, intense, and then there's a little bit of a lull where there's a break, and we like, you organise scrimmages, you play against like local teams, and then we go back in the league in March and play in all sorts of tournaments. And we were going to Las Vegas in the end of March. Do you know what I mean? So we go here, there, and everywhere, all over the country. To go to Florida. But yeah, the sort of the time of it is pretty much the same as at home.
And I think it goes on a little bit longer depending on how you do. So I think June is playoffs, where you would then go away again, depending on, like, you know, the top 2 teams from each region or whatever. So I think if you don't qualify for that, it's like May time you finish. So it probably is quite similar to home, really.
Okay, that's interesting. And so what's the plan for your careers out here? Is it you wanting to stay in California and keep coaching? Is this just a you know, kind of segue before you kind of go back to the Northeast? What is that looking like for you guys, or do you not know yet? Which is totally fine.
It's a great question, Shade.
I try to have good ones.
Yeah, good question. I don't think we know, obviously. We come out here, we've been given amazing opportunities. It's an amazing club. And I think there could be potential to extend it longer if we want to extend it longer. Equally, we're officially here till January 23.
Okay. Nice.
That's officially what we've got so far. But equally, I think if we wanted to stay longer, there's the option for that. I think I don't really know the answer to that yet.
Yeah, I know. We're really happy over here. Like we said, it's really you get to learn loads. I think obviously we've come to a total different football culture.
Yeah.
And it's a shock to the system when you first get here, but it develops you as a coach in different ways. You know what I mean? And you get exposure to things that maybe you have to manage things that are very different at home. So yeah, I think while we're here, you just kind of have to take it all in. And I try not to, obviously you do miss your family and your friends, but you just try not to think about that, because not everybody gets this opportunity that we've got, and it's not, who's to say it is forever, you know what I mean? So you could just kind of have to just enjoy it. I'm just very much, I'm going to enjoy it while I'm here, take it all in, take in as much information, do as much learning as I can from the coaching, see as much things as I can from this country, because this country is just unbelievable. And then just kind of see from there and take it how it goes. And I try not to think about, the rain and the wind in Newcastle.
I can't ever imagine going home. Like I said the other day, I feel like I've never lived in England. I just can't ever imagine going home. It's raining all the time. I'm looking out the window now and I'm just it looks 20 odd degrees. Do you know what I mean? Get us out in the sun.
It's very nice. Yeah, that's it.
It's refreshing and interesting for me to hear it from the other side, right? Because that's how I felt when I went out to Newcastle. I was only meant to stay there for a year. I had every intention of just staying there for a year. I ended up staying there for nearly 3. And it's just one of those things where, for me, I think that's the kind of right approach. Was I was all right, I got this year, and then I take it as it goes, and I'll do as much as I can and explore as much as I can. And I fell in love with the Northeast and everything like that, but I still love it here too. And I
can't imagine why anyone would want to move to England from America.
We get it all the time.
From California, who's now playing in Scotland, but she lived in Newcastle for a while. And she's just there's nothing out there. And I'm we've got here. I'm there's nothing here. There's nothing at home.
No one really. I feel if you're from here or you're from a place, you don't really appreciate it for what it is till you leave it. So
100%.
Newcastle, I still think the northeast of England is the best place. Newcastle is one of the best cities in England.
Yeah.
So everyone is so friendly. It's so welcoming. I understand. I've got loads of friends from uni who moved from Ireland, who moved from all these places, America, and who wanted to stay. Yeah. But then equally, you speak to people who are from here, and when you look at the sunsets in the nighttime or the mountains, and you're this is amazing, and they're oh, do you think so?
Yeah.
And because they've just been brought up here, and they just it's like us for Newcastle. You're saying, God, it was an amazing city. Well, because you're from there, I don't think you realise. But then now we're here, I'm yeah, this is amazing. But then Newcastle's also a really good place.
Yeah.
Northeast is a really good place to be. So, but yeah, everyone here thinks this is just normal. I'm these views, this weather, this is not normal.
I know, we're so spoiled here, aren't we?
Yes.
We are. We have a sunshine tax as well.
We're so spoiled with good weather to the point that I thought rainy days were exotic when I was in the Northeast.
Right.
What is this stuff coming from the sky?
Oh yeah, my first snowfall, I was what is going on here?
The world is ending.
You know what? The world is so funny because when it rains here, the world literally does end.
I know.
A week in advance. So they'll message and be oh, so it's due to rain next week. What's the plan? And I'm
because they cancel training.
But they shut the fields and stuff.
So the slightest bit of rain, obviously we're used to playing in the snow, where sometimes you can't see your hand in front of your face, and they're literally the slightest bit of drizzle, oh, fields are cancelled. And we're what? It's raining.
No,
yeah, so
you don't know how to drive either. If you go on the roads, they're panicked.
Yeah.
They're not the way, it's raining. I'm just just chill out, just go a bit slower, So.
Yeah, you're all right. You get lots of drive safe messages, and I'm I literally drive in this weather every day at home.
I know. And it's such the norm at home and well. And when it rains in San Diego, I'm like, oh God, it's raining. I've got to go outside. Everyone's like, this is crazy. This is crazy.
Yeah, because it's funny because even when it rains here, it's not cold. So
Right.
I'm just like, it doesn't bother me. Like when it rains at home, it's obviously like 2-3 degrees, but here it's warm and raining. But they're not a fan of the rain. A lot of
that's very, very true. That was like
that's good.
One of those realizations I had when I got back, because I'd gotten so used to the weather in the Northeast, right? And like it was like my first rainy day. I was driving on the freeway to get to work, and everyone was driving like crazy. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that this entire state shuts down when a bit of rain comes. Like, I don't really look at it like that anymore, which is one of the things I'm grateful for. Like, I don't mind going for a run in the rain or anything like that now. Like, it doesn't really bother me. Whereas before, I probably was like that and didn't realize that I acted like it was the end of the world. But it's so true that it does. Everyone loses their mind. And then everyone's got that like, oh, they're grateful for it too, though, because California's always in a drought and all that stuff. And like, we need the water, is what they always say.
I think equally you can flip it on its head, because some of the temperatures that the kids, I mean, I was concerned when I got here that it was 105 degrees when we got here, and the kids were playing a game midday, and I was like, Courtney, they're going to die. Like, I really feel concerned. Like, and they're just playing. Whereas England gets over 19 degrees now. Couldn't play in that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, and then there was a tournament where it rained, and actually it was really cold as well at Oceanside, wasn't it? It was cold and it rained. The kids hated it. They were like, it's free. They couldn't play in it, but then it was like 35 degrees, and they were like, look at it. They were like, yeah, and what?
Yeah,
like we'll just play in this.
Like, I could not play in that heat.
Nah.
Like, I couldn't. Like, when I first got there, I used to try and run, and I'd run like 2 miles. I'd be like, right, I'm done. I kind of breathe.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, the acclimatization phase it's real. You got to take your time. You got to acclimatize.
Yeah,
7 years.
Yeah, like, are you there yet? How long's that taken?
Yeah, I'm still not there yet.
I made the mistake of, there was like, I did this loads. I can't even say it was a mistake because I did it loads, but I would get up in the morning and be like, oh, it looks cold today. Go to tournaments with no cream on. And then by it was like 10, 11, 12, it was like 30. So by the time 4 o'clock had finished, I was like, at one point, one of the kids went and was, Coach, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, why? And I looked at myself and I was just red. And then the coaches here were like, used to, like, it's never not going to be sunny in the summer here. Like, you need to prepare. Obviously you don't burn, but like, they were saying to me, like, you need to wear cream every single day. And if ever it's cloudy, like, you need to be aware that the sun is going to come out at some point. So please put cream on. So then I learned a lesson in the end.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah, I don't really, I never wear sun cream. And everyone's like, yeah, I get that look a lot, especially when I'm like, you know, like I'm Mexican, right? Like, I don't, like, we were like, you know, I'll put some on because I don't want my face to maybe get a little red, but like, I've probably had 2 sunburns my entire life. And yeah, like, it's just,
we're getting 2 a day.
Yeah, it's just not a thing for me. But, you know, bit of snow and I'm like, what do I do? You know, like, that's interesting. Well, I know we've taken up a lot. You know, we've taken up quite a bit of your time, which we're massively grateful for. You know, so we'll start to wrap it up and let you guys get back to your lives and everything. But before we do, I kind of wanted to ask, you know, first off, like, what your hopes for you know, everyone in Newcastle is feeling hopeful now, right? Like, probably more hopeful than they've ever felt. You know, at least for the last 14 years, right? And rightfully so. And I mean, yeah, it's a bit grim where we're placed in the league, but you know, there is a lot of hope, and I think that's the overall feeling. And so, what are your hopes for Newcastle United? You know, in terms of now that we have this takeover, and Staveley made that lovely statement by going and visiting the club and really kind of showing that she was serious about the things that she had mentioned about the women's side. And what are your hopes for Newcastle? And then, you know, maybe after that, talk a little bit about maybe what your hopes are for really just the sport for women in general, and maybe over here, because you're now seeing the differences, or, you know, just anything that you'd like to see happen going forward.
Well, obviously, I hope Newcastle stay up. I think they probably will.
We will.
Yeah, they will. I think that I just want to see them do well. Do you know what I mean? There's such a fan base there, and the city is just they're just dying for that. Do you know what I mean? And I think, like, it's going to be, I would like to see what happened to Man City. Do you know what I mean? Like, where like it's just we're going to get what we deserve. Do you know what I mean? And hopefully bring in some better players and we can go and do well. I think obviously for the women, it could be massive. It could be massive, and sometimes I'm jealous that I'm not a part of it. And I'm like, it's amazing, and I'm so happy for the girls. Obviously, we're so like close to them, and I would like to hope that they can just have the support that they need. Do you know what I mean? And you never know. In the Northeast, there could be a WSL1 team. You've got Durham and Sunderland who are sort of fighting it out. And Durham, at one point, you thought we're going to go up to WSL1, but actually Newcastle could have it all. There's the backing there, there's the support, there's the money, and I would love to see Newcastle go all the way. And it brings, obviously, as a coach, from a coach's point of view, obviously we coach at the RTC at Sunderland, and we like help develop all these players, and there's so much quality, and it's like you don't want to lose them to your Arsenals and your Chelseas and whoever, because that's where the money is, and that's where there's a program for them. Whereas now there's the hope that actually with Newcastle you could get an under-19s, you could get a 20s or 23s, you could have a women's team playing at the highest level, and then you keep all the talent in the Northeast, and then you've got a great men's team and a great women's team, and it'll do massive for the city. Like, I'd love to see what they're going to do with the city, with all, like, do you know what I mean? And I just think it could be, and probably will be, amazing.
Yeah, that's what you want. Like, the Northeast just live and breathe football. So like it brings a new lease of life into everything, into the city, into young kids, into the supporters, into the players in both teams. Like, it's the women's team is such an exciting place, I would imagine it to be at the moment, and there's opportunities available to those players that they probably never even thought about as they were playing. And then the younger kids who we used to coach will now see that and see more and more players in our region playing at the top level in the championships. You know, we're really fortunate that we've got a lot of good teams in that region, like Durham, Newcastle, Sunderland, Borough, all playing it in higher leagues. So it's just good for players to have those opportunities and feel like they're reachable now, and you don't have to, like we said, you don't have to move down south to go and get that, or to become a professional or things like that. So
yeah.
And obviously for the men, like, they've just cried out for years for someone to just own the club who cares and who wants it to do well and improve everything that they have, so they can really compete in that league. So I think just Newcastle as a city, it's just such an exciting place to kind of be at the minute and to be a part of, and it'll have loads of like economic opportunities in the city and things like that. So I just think, you know, when we at Sunderland, we went to play against Man City, and you see what they did for the women. It's all kind of one, like the women have their own stadium and all the academies train together, and they've got this huge facility, and it's just really good for the community. So I think Newcastle are looking to kind of bring the community together through football. So it's just unbelievable. It's been a long time coming, but it's really exciting for everybody in the Northeast. You know what I mean? So
it's already an amazing city, isn't it? Like,
it is.
Like, I truly believe it's the best city in England. Like, I really do. And I think, like, what are they going to add now? Do you know what I mean? Like, because obviously not just the football club. It's going to add to the city. What else is going to come in? It'll be mint.
Yeah, I mean, I tell everybody, like, because, you know, every time I say, oh, I'm going over to England, they're like, oh, you're going to London? I'm like, nah.
Yeah.
I've been to London once. Like, I'm going to Newcastle, and I tell everybody that it's this hidden gem that if you're not, you know, if you're not from there, if you're not lived there, like, you just don't get it. And it really is just this magical place in the Northeast where, you know, it's just genuine people that are always, you know, always have a smile, always have a minute to say hi, but also, like, it's just so progressive and open-minded as well and I feel like it gets a bad rap sometimes because we're like, oh, it's a working class city. And then people believe that it has that kind of stigma that comes with those types of statements. And I'm like, nah, like, that city welcomed me with open arms, and, you know, and I'm just a dumb punk from Los Angeles, like, you know, and like, I just love it. And like you said, like, I feel like the city's getting everything that they so massively deserve. And, you know, in the whole city overall, it's not just the clubs. And so like, I mean, that resonates even with me, and I know it resonates with Rich, because it's stuff that me and him have talked about loads since the takeover, even pre-takeover.
Oh my God, right? No, we're still discussing plans behind the scenes for sure.
Yeah.
But we agree with you 100% in terms of the economic impact. I mean, due to COVID, I read the other day, I think there's 1.4 million jobs lost in the Northeast.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, over the next 2 to 3 years, there's going to be a huge improvement plan, but it's going to be a recovery plus expansion.
Yeah.
And over here, the Bay Area, San Francisco, have got Google, and all these tech companies, and Newcastle, they've got Newcastle United. That's our heart. That's our heart, basically. The heart of the city. So I think everyone's going to be involved, in that and around that, and the infrastructure around that, and the promotion of the club overseas or in Europe or in America, like Shade and I are trying to do with the fan base. So there's just huge opportunities everywhere. So
yeah. The owners seem like great as well. Like the care they've gone to met the women's team. They tweet fans regularly. Show support to women. Like I've never known.
It's a club more than a business, isn't it?
I've never known many owners do that. So they look like they look great, and what they're doing's great, and it sounds like the plans that they've got is great. So yes, very exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting for sure. And then what about just women's football in general? What are your hopes for that? I mean, like I said, San Diego's getting their first professional team. I'm looking at season tickets. I'm really excited. Like I love Alex Morgan. I love that she's coming to San Diego to play. Like that's just fantastic. And so I mean, for me, like that's exciting. But obviously, I'm just a fan, and I'm much further removed than both of you from the game. So like, what do you hope to see in an ideal world?
I mean, in England or in America?
Both in general, whatever.
I mean, I just want there to be more opportunities. I'll talk England, obviously, because I've been here 6 months, and obviously, how am I to talk about America? But in England, I just hope there's more opportunities. I think, like, I love playing, and if I go home, I'll definitely go home and play. And I just think, like, I wish there was more opportunities on a coaching level, on a playing level, because there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of quality. There's, like, great players there, and it's just, like I think we deserve more. Like they deserve more. Do you know what I mean? And I just would love to see like teams move up the leagues and it just get bigger and bigger. Do you know what I mean? Like more coverage, more media coverage, more people like taking an interest because it has a knock-on effect. Do you know what I mean? If there's more media coverage, you see more girls get involved in it. If more girls are getting involved in it, there's more talent to pick from. Then the game gets better, and it's just like a knock-on spiral effect. So I just want it to grow, and I think like obviously. Your lower league teams, can they start getting more support? Do you know what I mean? Can clubs start supporting them? There's so much money in the men's game. Do you know what I mean? It's a drop in the ocean for them. Do you know what I mean? And it is going in the right direction. Don't get us wrong. Obviously, you've got like WSL Player now where you can watch all the women's games, but that's sort of the top two leagues. I know, for example, Leeds, they stream their women's games, but like just the bigger they're going to make it, the bigger the game's going to get. Do you know what I mean? And I just think more opportunities, like obviously in terms of coaching, like there's no full-time coaching roles for females at home. Do you know what I mean? Like obviously we've come out here and what we've been given is amazing, but at home that isn't there unless you go in the boys' game. But I don't want to work in the boys' game. I want to work in the girls' game. I want to develop girls. Do you know what I mean? I would love there to be a full-time youth coaching job, and it might get there, but not probably in the next 10 years. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think we talk about the gap over here, that there seems to be a gap between like college and professional. Like there doesn't seem to be a lot in between. I think in England it's hard at the moment for the kids who leave. There's not a lot of, for 16, 17, 18-year-olds. So in between women's teams and RTC leagues, there's not really anything in between. So you get a lot of kids who are going straight into women's teams and who maybe don't get the opportunities to play as much as they would. Maybe if there was, we need more teams in like under 19s teams, I think, that can, and under 19s leagues, especially in the Northeast, where these really talented players can come out, but they can compete at a high level. And then when they're ready to step up into the women's game, because it's going to improve the women's game, but it means that, kids aren't coming from a regular games program to a season or two where they're really limited on game time and then having to be expected to step up. I think that that kind of category of age group, more teams at that age group would help football in the region so much and help the kids so much. And it would bridge the gap, and the talent would be, would be able to keep the talent a little bit more in the Northeast, I think. So I think that's definitely something I would like to see. And hopefully now Newcastle have got the backing, maybe they could have, get a reserve team. Maybe Sunderland could get a reserve team back. I know Middlesbrough's got one, but just more teams for these players to go to.
There we go.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, that would be fantastic.
I think it will. I think it will happen.
I'm really optimistic. I mean, I'm optimistic in general, but I really think that I mean, yeah, it's going to take time and stuff, but I really think that specifically women's football is definitely heading in the right direction. And it's exciting to see, and I'm excited for it. I definitely want to go to a Newcastle game next time I'm out, and
that's a must. You have to go.
No, I have to. I know. I was hoping. I really wanted to do one, like I said, and I would have especially loved to do one knowing I was going to be we'd be interviewing you guys as well, and so I could talk more about that. But it's definitely on the cards for next time I'm out.
Yeah.
And you guys, you'll have to come down to San Diego at some point and either watch a match with us. I mean, they don't show Sunderland at the bar, unfortunately. But no, because it'd be great to meet both of you and show you our city, and we could even, like I said, we could even get a football game in or something like that.
We'll organize something. We'll come when we're next down at San Diego. We have games down there, so we'll organize something.
Yeah, let us know. Great. Yeah, well, Rhiannon, Courtney, thank you so much for giving us your time and sharing your stories with us. We couldn't be you're our first episode of the new year, and we think it's just kicking it off with a bang. We're really excited to be back up and running, and we just want to thank you again so much for taking the time and sitting down with us.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's nice to speak to a Geordie.
All right. Very good. Anytime.
All right. Thank you.
When you come down, we've got a few.
That's right.
So.
That's right. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
See you
thank you again so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. You guys take care. Thanks again to everybody tuning in. We're the United State, brought to you by Gallowgateshots. Thank you for everything. We'll be back again soon. Happy New Year.